Okay, I'm very excited. Everybody knows my favorite host, Amber Wilson, my former co host, Amber and Ian, every night, ESPN radio, 7 to 10 p.m. every night. I mean, what a joke every night. When's the last time you worked, Amber? Seriously, when is the last time that you accepted a paycheck for services actually rendered?
Well, hold on. The paycheck's still cash. Okay. They've cashed every couple of weeks, regardless of when I'm on air. All right. So it's a sweet kind of little gig for that. So I'll let baseball have its moment in the month of October. It's why Amber and Ian keeps getting bumped because these people that run ESPN, they're in bed with Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball comes to ESPN. They say, hey, we want you to broadcast the games. ESPN says, we can't. Amber and Ian, Monday through Friday, 7 to 10 p.m. Major League Baseball is like, yo, we're Major League Baseball. And apparently they win. I guess they had a good point. I don't know. I'm not running things yet. If I was running things at Disney and ESPN, Amber and Ian would be on every night. But in fact, this week, I was only on the last couple nights. Wednesday, Thursday night.
Okay.
Tonight, we're going to take a back seat. I'll let the World Series have a little moment in the sunshine. We'll be back on air next week, depending how the World Series goes.
Oh my God, how good would it be if you were running things at ESPN? I feel like that would go in a really good direction for me as well, because Amber knows how grateful I am for helping me out and getting some of the opportunities, that I've been getting at ESPN Radio, which I have really enjoyed. I'm enjoying so much more than I ever thought I would, really, from day number one. And I really do owe it to you. So I'm really pleased with that.
Well, I'm so glad you came on board. I know we had talked about it a long time ago, and you were always sort of trepidatious about the national thing because it's not the same as the local. And I think that there's this idea when you're in local. I mean, I had the same idea for years. You're concerned, am I going to be able to have fun if I go national? And, it's a little bit more buttoned up than what we did when we were both at 790. Forever on ZASLOW and Amber, but it's still a lot of fun. You've been doing great. You've been killing it. We get to do shows together again from time to time. So that's been great. So I'm really glad you're enjoying it. I'm glad I finally talked you into coming on board.
That is my favorite part. I get to do shows with you again. I'm on again this weekend. Sunday, game day, second week in a row. I'm doing it 3 weeks because I guess Shea Cornette's away. So I'm doing it again this Sunday from 1 to 5 p.m. game day with both Herm Edwards and Mike Tannenbaum this weekend, which really sets up as like it's a funny thing. And I know you've done game day before. It's simultaneously the most difficult and easiest show I've ever done. Like, it's difficult because there's so much going on. I got the red zone on my television. I have the stats on my phone. I have the scoreboard on my iPad, and I have the producer screen up in Bristol on my computer, and I got to listen to Herm Edwards and be able to steer and lead the show in the right direction. That makes it difficult. But the easy part is it's the fastest 3 hours I ever did in my life last weekend.
It was one of my very favorite shows to do. They don't let just anybody do it. So it's a very big deal that you're getting to do it because it is so hard. From a radio host perspective, it's literally like hosting Red Zone. Yeah. Like, from hosting that show, I'm like, oh, okay, I could do this Red Zone thing. And you watch Red Zone and it's so flawless, right? And what's the NFL Network version of Red Zone? All those shows that do the same sort of thing. And it's so flawless, and you think, man, that's got to be so hard. And it is so hard from a host perspective, but it's also so, so, so fun. And the entire time you're juggling, there's so many balls in the air the whole time. And so it goes by in 2 seconds. It was my same experience. You always end up working with, former execs or coaches or former athletes. That's typically always the role alongside of you. You're driving everything. You have producers yelling at you anytime there's something happening in any game or putting it up on the screen. You're managing all of it, plus getting their opinions, plus making sure that you're updated on all the action. It's so much fun. I miss doing that show.
I really like it. So make sure you guys are listening this Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m. Me, Mike Tannenbaum, Herm Edwards, the ESPN app, Sirius XM channel 80 as well. All right, Amber, I know one of the things you love when I fill in, and I've gotten a great opportunity for a few weeks where I've been filling in on some Friday nights, even a Thursday night, filling in for Ian Fitzsimmons because he's Mr. College Football. So I get to sit in with you on Amber and Ian. You are very much in charge. You are in the big boy chair when we do that show. And I know one of the things you love when I do that is you get to talk a little bit of NBA, maybe a little bit more NBA than you normally would. So how much of the Heat did you see Wednesday night in the opener? 1-point win against Detroit. Give me a little bit of thoughts there if you saw very much.
I didn't actually see very much of that game, which is funny because you're right. I've been waxing poetic for months of frustration about how much I want to talk basketball. And can we talk basketball? And I've been fighting with my producers at ESPN, like, I want to talk hoops. And they're like, you can't talk hoops yet. It's NFL. It's football season. What are you talking about? Basketball hasn't even started. And frankly, let's be honest, Zaslow, I'm not sure basketball really starts until the day after of Christmas, right? These days, the way that it kind of goes with the coverage and the focus, the way that the NFL is king. Nevertheless, I'd been screaming from the rooftops, I want to talk basketball. And then I ended up watching very little of the actual Heat game on Wednesday. But that's because I was caught up and busy on Wednesday and also, hosting a show. The rare time I worked on Wednesday. So it actually got in the way of some of my fanfare for once. But the one point when I was seeing a lot of people disappointed on social media, it's game one. What are we doing? Why are we disappointed already? I think it's going to be a long season for the Heat fan if they're going to show up with that attitude out of the gate.
Well, yeah. So, what have you made of the discourse from, essentially from the Heat fan social media, where there's been a really negative outlook toward the start of this season? And I refuse to feel that way at the beginning of the year. I'm glad my team is back. I'm excited to watch them on a nightly basis again.
It sucks. It sucks for a team that was just in the NBA finals, right?
Yep.
I mean, it just super sucks because normally if your team was just within an arm's reach of winning a title, you'd go into the next season so happy when you have all of those pieces back that helps you get there and helps you win an Eastern Conference championship. And that's not the experience because of what happened with Damian Lillard. And it's such a shame. And frankly, I think that maybe that was a miscalculation from the Heat's perspective as well, when it came to the whole Damian Lillard thing, the way that it did drag out, the way that it went on. And I understand that maybe the Blazers are more at fault for that than the Heat. But I think maybe the thing that the Heat also weren't taking into account is just, this is such a letdown then coming off of what's a very, very good season because it dragged on all summer. And then at the end of things, we get the news that he's making the Milwaukee Bucks exponentially better, and obviously a rival within our own conference. And so there's going to, I think, be just a natural disappointment coming from the fan base when you watch the Celtics get better and you watch the Bucks get better. Even if the Heat end up being great this season again, it's an off-season sport now, Zaslow. You can win 2 championships, right? If you're an NBA fan, you're looking at the championship that actually matters there, which is the NBA title. But winning the off-season is actually a thing as well in the NBA now because it has become a year-round sport because we all love the transaction so much. All of that's great for the game, but it can lead to this sort of disappointment if you're a fan.
I think part of what happened is with the Heat fan, especially coming off a year like last year where the regular season sucked.
Yeah.
But then you get to the playoffs, it's like, all right, this shit's awesome. So we know that the team can coast through the regular season if they want. And if they would have made a big splash in the offseason, it gives the Heat fan something exciting between now and April.
It's 82 of this, right? I got to watch 81 more games of them underperforming.
I got to wait.
A game they should have won by 20 points, by 1 point. I got to wait. I have to wait because it's also a team that's led by Jimmy. He's going to save himself for the postseason, and that's fine, as he should. And we know that's how things work in this day and age. But you're absolutely right. It's a season that's too long anyways. The NBA season's longer than it should be. I mean, that's the reality of it. It diminishes some of the importance of each and every regular season game. So you're going through all of that as an NBA fan, even if you had gotten Damian Lillard. Let's be honest about that. I mean, Dame is 33 years old. It's not like he was going to show up and show out all 82 either in 2023. It's just not how it works for these guys in their 30s who are the superstars. But it would have given you something new to look for as a Heat fan. And I think you feel great about what happened in the postseason. But like you said, you got there as an 8th seed. You know how long the season was watching it to get there. And I think you're just looking at the season ahead like, all right, it's going to be a while until we get to the good stuff. Mm-hmm. Yep. Even if they can do it again, it's going to be a while until they get to the good stuff.
Let me give you a couple hot button issues, and then we'll get to some Dolphin stuff so you can get all your NBA takes that you've had bottled up. You can get them all out here. All right. I saw this was as a headline on First Take yesterday The night,
good show, especially when I'm on it. Excellent show.
I saw this as a head. Like, you are excellent on First Take. You are my favorite. Look, all of them are my colleagues, so I got respect for all of them. These are my coworkers, respect. Yeah. But you are my favorite panelist when you're on First Take. I mean, a real mistake that they haven't invited you back yet. Anyway, James Harden, that whole saga going on in Philadelphia. Joel Embiid. I saw this as a headline on First Take. Should Joel Embiid ask out of Philadelphia? We're on day number 3 of the NBA. Should Joel Embiid ask out?
Yes, he should, and he should demand a trade to the Miami Heat. And for once, the Miami Heat should actually get their guy again, even though, yes, they got Jimmy, and yes, they got LeBron, and yes, they got Chris Bosh, and everyone forgets all those the heavy hitters that Shaq and everybody else that they actually landed on over the years. But now we're in this era because they've whipped on a couple here over the last few years of, Riley can't close. So let's go ahead. We'll get Joel Embiid. Riley will close this thing on his way out. Dame, we'll hardly miss you, right? If we go ahead and get
you
Joel.
would
so
give
yes,
up
he
Bam.
Demand a trade.
You would give up Bam for Joel Embiid.
I would give up damn near anything for Joel Embiid to join this team. I would consider giving up Bam, obviously, because yes, of the skill sets. You would have to.
Only way
the skill set. But Bam was untouchable with Dame, but also Dame and Jimmy Butler without Bam is a team with a lot of deficiencies, right? It's not the same situation when you're talking Joel Embiid for Bam. So obviously in that situation, yes, I am giving up Bam. It is an upgrade to go to Joel Embiid. I'm okay with that as much as I love Bam, and I'm not giving him up for most players. It's not disrespect to Bam. It's just the reality of how great the reigning MVP is in Joel Embiid. Nevertheless, he's not demanding a trade on day 3. That's lunacy. And he's certainly not demanding one yet to the Miami Heat. Could I see him winning out of Philadelphia, Zaslow? On the real? Yes, I could. Daryl Morey right now, I understand he's done this and he has showed incredible patience in the past. I mean, heck, we saw him let a player sit out for an entire year in Ben Simmons before he traded him. Like, he is unwaveringly patient that he is going to try to get what he thinks that he should get for the player. I'm just not sure that's going to end up being successful here. And the risk that you're running is the Joel Embiid component of it. So I am a little surprised. I think Daryl Morey sometimes has this I'm smarter than everybody in the room sort of thing. And frankly, it's worked out well for him in transactions in the past, but I'm just not sure it's going to work out for him well with transactions here. I think at some point you got to cut your losses and move on from James Harden. I don't really know what the advantage is here for what Philadelphia is doing.
Another hot button issue. Should the Warriors retire Kevin Durant's jersey number?
Yes. That's a hot button. Who the hell is talking about that?
That's on First Take also. That's literally on First Take also.
In October?
Yes.
We've got postseason baseball. We've got basketball. We've got NFL. We've got college ball. We've got hockey back. We're talking about Kevin Durant's jersey being retired when the man is still trying to win a championship with Phoenix. That's lunacy. Yes. Yes, they will retire it. Absolutely. You have to retire the guy. Any of the guys that win you the chips and they do it as MVP, you're retiring their jersey one day.
At this point in the NBA season, who is the front runner for MVP?
3 days in, it's still after a game. It's still Jimmy, just because he has my heart.
All right. I mean, that's very important to these guys. MVP is a very big deal.
Well, yeah, Joel got maybe a little too caught up in that last season. It's like, maybe let's focus a little bit more on getting out of the first round, a little less on the individual awards.
Were you as offended as I was the other night with Adam Silver's very tepid response to Charles Barkley on NBA on TNT, talking about, what are we going to do about these guys who are beating up women?
Oh, I didn't see this.
Oh, yeah. Barkley pressed him on Tuesday night and was like, what, we can't have guys like this in the league. What are we going to do about it? And I just thought Adam Silver's answer was a vomit. I thought it was super soft. We have, we've worked with the players union and we have counseling in place and, training to make sure these guys know that in stressful situations, I mean, you're not a babysitter, right. You're here to play. Like, why does the NBA, why is there some responsibility to make sure players know that they don't that they're not supposed to beat up women? I don't
It's
understand.
it's because of how powerful that NBA PA is. I mean, that's really what I think you're working against when you're hearing from Adam Silver. And we've seen some of the pushback that extends far beyond those issues. Like, it seems pretty easy for the NBA to come out and have a very hard-nosed approach to domestic violence in the NBA, right? Come out, condemn it on the front end, have a hard-nosed approach. But just generally speaking, the power of the player in that league, it's unlike what we see in the other leagues. And I feel like with Adam Silver's reign, and you know this, I was on this before
You really
else.
were. I was not on the same page with you at the start, and you brought it up years ago that Adam Silver is Teflon and you don't get it.
I did not understand it. Like 7-8 years ago on ZASLOW and Amber, I was kept saying, why did he say Adam Silver is the best commissioner in sports? He really hasn't had to deal with much adversity. I understand that we can harp on Roger Goodell for some things, but also it felt like to me at that point when we were having these conversations back on 790 The Ticket, that Roger Goodell had dealt with a lot more in his career. And I just hadn't seen Adam Silver do much. It's like, all right, he was just letting the players run the show. He wasn't actually doing much from the league perspective. And now you see when he has to take that onus on himself and actually be the leader of the NBA, I do think sometimes there's a bit of maybe backbone that's lacking because of the power that the individual players possess. And that's why you've seen things now like these owners trying to take back some of the power. That's what happened with this Damian Lillard situation to some extent, right? And we'll see how that works moving forward. But Adam Silver is a commissioner. I mean, there's been a lot of times now over the last few years where I thought he needs to take an approach on something. You know, he needs to come out, be a bit more forceful, and it might make you a little unpopular. And he hasn't been willing to do that. And maybe this is another example of that. Again, I didn't actually hear the comments, so, you know, I'm not commenting specifically on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was sort of another example of him appeasing the NBA PA. And that's not actually your job if you're the commissioner of the NBA.
He really is about path of least resistance, I feel. And for me, the NBA under his watch, players don't play, players don't honor contracts, soft on punishment.
Right.
That's Adam Silver's NBA.
As a sport, it continues to get more popular. I would argue that would have happened anyways, right? With television rights deals and distribution and TikTok highlights and all that sort of stuff. But the way that it's getting more popular, the way that the youngest generation is consuming these things, it's very wildly popular. Social media in a lot of ways has helped the NBA because you see the crazy plays, you see the slam dunks, you know, Wemby's a star before he even gets to this country sort of thing. But at the same time, they're not sitting down and watching games in their entirety. And in part because those stars aren't playing in Adam Silver's NBA, like you said. You're right. The movement, the not honoring the contracts, that what we're seeing with James Harden right now. And boy, we've seen it now, multiple stops along the way. And if you're James Harden, why the hell wouldn't you do it? Because it's worked everywhere you've been, right? So of course you're going to try to do it again. And I just said, I thought Daryl Morey, I mean, at this point, like get rid of, essentially give in to what James Harden wants. Instead, he's going to take the hard-nosed approach. And he's trying to himself, but, you know, you can't do this to me. I'm Daryl Morey. And I'm afraid for the 76ers fan, it's going to cost them Joel Embiid on the back end, and they'll be the big losers if that's the way that things go. But just generally as a landscape in the NBA, I mean, I think that Adam Silver's counter argument would be the sport is exponentially more popular decade in and decade out. And that's true. But I'm not sure that would be the case, or that would not be the case if somebody else was commissioner as well.
Amber, as far as the NBA, you've said it all. Let's move over to the Dolphins.
So it is said, so it is done.
Dolphins and Patriots this weekend. The Dolphins are coming off of a double-digit loss in Philadelphia, which has been a field day for all the haters this week, that the Dolphins are a phony team. They've only played two good teams. They've lost by double figures to both of them. Here's where I would, now that's true. I don't know about the phony part, but the place that I push back, Amber, is I'd rather be a team like the Dolphins at 5-2, where my two losses are on the road at really good teams, compared to a team like, say, the 49ers, who are 5-2, and their two losses are at shit teams. Okay. Yeah. So like, why are you phony if you lose to great teams, but you're not phony if you lose to bad teams?
I'm glad you brought this up, because this narrative has been driving me insane on our network over the last week.
Go on.
Where
And you said our network because it's our network. Both
our
of us.
Network.
Yeah.
Both of us, we're in the family here, the fam jam. So our network over the last week, there has been so many people on our network talking about how the Dolphins, when they face a good team, they get exposed. Okay, but doesn't everybody? I mean, isn't that sort of when you're supposed to get somewhat exposed, right? Like if you play the Kansas City Chiefs and you get somewhat exposed, right? Isn't that, like you're saying, better than playing the Carolina Panthers and getting exposed?
Because when the Dolphins play the bad teams, they win and they beat the shit out of them.
The shit out of them. And isn't that what you're supposed to do? So yes, it did not go as planned against the Eagles. However, when you take into account the circumstances, first of all, you're talking about a team that was just in the Super Bowl, right, in Philadelphia, and a team that has a totally indefensible play with the tush push, which I don't have any problem with them running that play. If I was Philadelphia, I might run that play every single down.
I think you just
because
like
it can probably get you
push.
three. It can probably get you 3 yards every single down. Like if I'm Philadelphia, I might just be hammering that thing and running nothing else because nobody can stop it. It's not illegal. They're playing the game. If they want to outlaw it in the NFL, fine, whatever. We're going to have that conversation. Then it's kind of stupid because they are the only ones that are successful at it. The point is that that's a very good Philadelphia team, even though I myself have had some sort of slightly negative tempered things to say.
You're a Cowboys girl.
Well, I apparently I'm a Cowboys girl, right? According to First Take. But Philadelphia, I don't think Philadelphia is quite as good as they were last season. I do think Philadelphia has had some growing pains here as they switch coordinators on both sides of the ball and where they lost some key pieces, but they're still a very good team. And they did some very good things against a very banged up Dolphins team. So when you're a Dolphins team that's missing 5 starters on offense, you're missing Achane, you're missing 3 starters on defense, you don't have X. You don't have all the pieces.
They may get Howard and Ramsey this weekend.
And if we can get Ramsey out there and finally see what that's going to look like, that's going to be huge as well. So you're missing a bunch of key pieces in that game against Philadelphia. Plus the refs were wearing Kelly Green as well as the Eagles. And you're in a hostile environment on the road. That's the time that losing's kind of okay, right? Like for me, the sky's not falling if you lose in that situation. The sky's falling if you cough one up to the team that you absolutely should be taking care of business against. That's a whole different story. So I agree with you. I don't know what this narrative has been. The Bills loss to me concerns me a bit more than the Eagles loss, frankly, because I thought, considering the circumstances, the fact that we go into the fourth quarter still with an opportunity to win that game in the fourth, with everything stacked against us and with the terrible calls in that game, I thought that it was a decent situation for the Dolphins. So I'm not, excusing a couple losses, but yeah, like at the end of the season, if you tell me the only teams we lose to are those teams,
they're going to win a lot of games then.
All day, every day. Yes, yeah. Of course.
How many points did the Dolphins win by against New England this weekend?
150.
Wow. I was going to go a little less.
Take the under on that. Here's the thing. Bill still calls a good defensive game plan.
They only beat him by a touchdown last time.
Right. And so that I think is going to end up being a factor here. Defensively, that Patriots team is confusing, of course. It leaves a whole lot to be desired. Mac Jones.
Tua has never lost to Belichick. Tua owns him.
He does own him. Tua's his daddy. I do think the Dolphins get a win. The Dolphins need a win. That would be hugely helpful. I do not think that this game is going to be a blowout by any means. I just think Bill is too good. His staff is too good defensively. I think also what I think is good about what's happened here with the Eagles and also with Buffalo is I think that it's a learning experience for Mike McDaniel. When you want them to figure you out a bit is in the regular season, right? So you can clean up some of that in the postseason. It's when you take away the game and it's all that trickery and the defense isn't so confused by all that trickery because they've got it a little bit figured out and they can get some pressure there on Tua. And of course, we've got the injuries on the O-line. That's a huge, huge problem for the Dolphins. When you're in that mode and you're able to get some pressure and you're not biting on all of that pre-snap motion, then you are able to disrupt things for the Dolphins some. And that'll be up to Mike McDaniel to adjust. He's showing a lot of looks here early in the season that hardly anyone's ever seen in NFL history, right? I mean, the man looks like an offensive genius. But at the same time, you have to keep adjusting. We see it with Shanahan's systems. We've seen it for years with Shanahan. So I think ultimately Mike McDaniel will do that, and that we'll see some more of that adjusting. But I do think coming off of the Eagles loss, the Bills loss, there's a bit of a playbook for Bill to work off of. And I think that he'll have that team defensively somewhat ready. He just doesn't have the personnel. So we'll still get the dub. Not going to be a blowout.
Amber, you've said it all. You
Really?
cannot hear her tonight. All right. Tonight you got World Series. Boog Shambi, voice of the World Series on ESPN radio tonight. But you'll be able to, I mean, are you going to be back on Monday? I mean, probably not, right?
That'll be game 4 on Monday, I believe.
So you're probably back on Thursday then, right?
Well, I mean, because I'm assuming we're going to a game 5,
like
right?
If it's not a sweep, you'll be back on Thursday.
Right. If it's not a sweep, I should be back on Thursday.
But
we'll see. I mean, if this thing goes 7, talk to you in a while.
What a lifestyle. How about finally, I will leave you with this. Are you relieved to know that my favorite and your new friend as well, Chris Russo, is not in fact retiring?
Oh my God. What was he doing though, Zach? Like, that dog is your favorite.
Best.
Chris Russo is the sweetest man. He's amazing. He's so fun to work with as well. But what the hell are you doing, Mad Dog?
He is the best.
I mean, you can't. This is not the time in your career to threaten retirement, because as much of a legend as Mad Dog is, his career has had some like weird resurgence here. Like, he's done it all. I get that. But also here in the latter half of his career, he has had a huge bump. Like, now ain't the time. So when he threatened or offered to retire, if he was wrong, which he was wrong. When he threw that out there, I genuinely thought that he must already have it in the works that he was retiring from Sirius. I was like, oh, he's already leaving Sirius, because he's so big at ESPN now, and he's probably so damn busy, and who wants to work this hard if you're Chris Russo and you've already done it all in your career? So maybe he's just going to focus on the ESPN stuff, and he already knows that. So he's like, oh, I'll retire but apparently that wasn't the case. He was just throwing some crazy shit out there.
I mean, he just like he said, he would have been stunned if the Phillies didn't win.
Okay, but there's still a chance. There was still a chance. Like, none of us are risking our careers on any given sports take, right?
Nope, probably not. But you're relieved that he's not retiring. You're glad.
I'm glad he's not retiring. He's
glad
a very
too.
Sweet man.
I'm glad too. Amber, excellent job. Again, Amber and Ian, when there's no baseball, 7 to 10 on ESPN radio. Sometimes I am filling in, and then I get to work with Amber again. Excellent job, Amber. Thanks so much. Always good having you on.
Thanks for having me.